recording. So we have the Superstore data. You can get this data set from the internet. We have 10,000 records. We have about 21 columns with us. And what data do we have? We have order date, we have shipping date for 4 years. Then we have the customer ID and the customer name. We have the segment. We have the country, city, state, postal code, and region. We are selling products in the United States, right? After that, we have our product details. So we have product category, subcategory, product name. And finally, we have sales quantity, discount, and profit. So I hope all of you, the data set is very simple. It's a sales transactional data for a company that is selling multiple product categories in the United States. And the data is for 4 years, right? So we have different cities, different state, different product categories, and we have the sales and the profit amount. Can you tell me what type of analysis would you want to do with this data set? Just put it on the chat window, whatever comes to your mind. So guys, whatever comes to your mind. Okay, so Ayush, we can look at a sales pattern based on regions, absolutely. Sakshi, we can look at analysis as per the highest sales, so we can look at the top 10 customers. Mansi, we can look at the product portfolio, absolutely, which products are selling more. But how will you do all of this? That's the question. Your observations are correct, that this is what we need to find out. But how are we going to find out these things? What do you do on Excel usually to get all these results? You make a, correct me if I'm wrong, everyone. I'm sure that all of you will agree with me that the simplest and the most common way of doing it as a student or as a corporate professional would be to make a pivot table, correct? For example, if I want to find out who my top 10 customers are, this is how I would do it. I would select my data, and on insert, I will make a pivot table. And then when I make the pivot table, I'll keep my customer name in my rows. I'll keep my sales value in my values. Then I'll sort the data. And after that, because I want to see the top 10, I will have to click on value filter and then select top 10 and then select top 10. And I'm sure all of you would agree with me that it's not very difficult, but it's a very manual process. And for every single requirement, I have to do this manually. Now I want to show you how to do the same thing on Power BI, right? For all of you who haven't worked on Power BI earlier, the BI stands for Business Intelligence. It's a free application. You can download it from the internet free of cost. You don't have to pay anything for this. There are paid subscriptions, but you don't need it. This is the interface. So let's get right to the chase. What do we want? We want to connect to an Excel file. So I'll click on Excel. I'll connect to the same data set called Superstore. Everybody? So far, so good. Now let me show you what is interesting about Power BI. Please watch. If I want to do something manually, I can, like I did on Excel pivot tables. But at the same time, if I want to save time, I can click on this button called Q&A, right? And what does it do? It tells me that I can ask a question about my data. So let me ask the system, show me who are my top 10 customer name by sales. Pretty cool, right? Like on Excel, we had to do all this manually. We had to make a pivot, then we had to put it in row values, sort the data, select the top 10. And here I can just ask the question, show me who are my top 10 customer name by sale, right? And obviously I can change it. Like if I want to see the bottom 10, I can just say, show me bottom 10. I have to show me the bottom 10. Right? So let's stick with the top 5 for now, but keep on watching, all right? I will click on this button, which will make the Q&A result into a proper vision like this. So it becomes a proper vision. But let me show you something even better than this. I can now right click and click on summarize, which means I'm now telling Power BI that I don't just want the chart. I want you to give me a summary about the report so that I don't have to do it manually. So what will happen when I click on summarize, it is automatically creating a narrative saying that at 25,000, Sean Miller has the highest sales and was 73.13% higher than Adrian, who had the lowest sale at 14,000. Sean Miller accounted for 28.37% of sales. Pretty cool, right? Like this entire thing that you see right now is happening automatically. Now you might say, but what if I want to know the average value, for example? That's it. You can simply say, please watch everyone. I can write the average sale was, and then I can click on this value button and I can now ask a question. What is the average sale? And it tells me the average sale is 229.27. I can click on save. This number gets added, but it gets even better than this. Whatever you see right now is dynamic. That means that if I make a slicer and I select a region, you would all notice that. I hope all of you are able to see this on the screen is clear. So if you notice everyone, whenever I select any region, do you see what is happening? The report is changing, the chart is changing like this, right? You can ask your questions now. Let's see the chat window. Right? So Tableau and Power BI are competitors. It's like Mercedes and BMW or Coca-Cola and Pepsi. They're selling the same product, but they all have certain additional capabilities that is not there in the other one. But basically they compete head on. Like a client which is working with Tableau can also use Power BI and the other way around. Like Excel doesn't have any competition, right? Excel is the only spreadsheet tool available. If you want to work with statistics, then you have a lot of options. You have MATLAB, you have SPSS, you have Stata. Similarly, when you're working with business intelligence, you again have a lot of options. Power BI is one, Tableau is a different one. And the Q&A is very nice, which means that I can even ask questions like, please watch everyone. I can say, show me sale by state as a map, and it will actually make a map for you. How cool is that? Like something like this wouldn't have been possible on Excel, right? And now you can do this. And again, these are all dynamic. So when I click on my region, you notice that whichever region I select, it will dynamically select that particular region. Right? Any questions, anyone? So Power BI can connect to different types of data sets. So you can see that we can connect to everything. Like we can connect to Excel, text, CSV, JSON, PDF, SharePoint. We can connect to different types of databases, right? Then we can connect to big data. We can connect to Google BigQuery. So, and they keep on adding more and more connectors every month. Okay, now comes the part. Is it interesting? Of course it is. Is it fun to work with? Definitely it is. But you have to understand that for a data analyst, it's not just about creating a chart. To create a report like the one that I showed you, the one on the remote workplace survey, I'll just have to pause my recording because I'm not allowed to. Okay, so on Excel, also we have these options available. On Excel, this is called Ideas, only available for Microsoft 365 users. And how does it work? Quite similar to Power BI, obviously not that powerful. So you click on the Ideas button, and what is happening is your data is being encrypted and it is being sent to Microsoft Cloud. It is analyzing the data. And here also I can ask a question. For example, I can say, who are my top 3 customer name in the West region for the order year 2014 in the consumer segment? Everyone? So I hope all of you can see, this is quite a detailed question, isn't it? It has multiple components in it. I'm looking at my top 3 customers in the West region in the year 2014 in the consumer segment. Could I have done this manually? Yes, but it would have taken me a lot of time. So I can just ask a question like this, and it will give me the result here. Obviously, in Power BI, this thing becomes even more powerful. On Excel, also, you have some limited capabilities. Right? Any questions, anyone, so far? All right, no question. Anybody else? Feel free. Remember, there are no silly questions. If there is a silly question, I always tell people, if you have to ask a stupid question, ask it early. Don't spend 2 years working in a company and then ask stupid questions. If you want to ask stupid questions, ask it in the first 2 months. Nobody will laugh at you because everybody asks stupid questions at the beginning, right? So not asking a question is never the right approach, right? Please make sure to ask a lot of questions. All right, let me also give you a perspective of, why should you learn programming, right? All of you might be curious to know whether you should. If you should, why? Do we need to learn it today or should we learn it after some time? What languages to learn? If we don't learn it, can we still become a data analyst, right? And how to learn it? That's very important. Are these software working together to analyze given data, or are they a complete pack in themselves too? Ranshu, these are all different software. So Excel is different. It uses a different model. It uses a different algorithm. Power BI is different. It uses something else. Tableau is again different. Python and R are different. All tools are different, right? In terms of how they handle data. Now, programming is important. If you look at the national education policy now, 6th standard students will be taught coding. What does that tell you? It basically tells you that it is important to learn coding and programming. You can't escape it. Whatever your background is, whether you have done zoology honors or BA arts or physics honors or bachelor's of business administration, it doesn't matter. You have to learn it. Because today, even a user who works on tools like Excel also needs to learn programming. And let me prove you why. If you look at this option called Script Lab, you will notice that Excel has now shifted to JavaScript. So I can actually run JavaScript codes in Microsoft Excel, right? Now, why am I showing you all these things? The reason I'm showing you all these things is to tell you that you can't escape it. If you are going to work in a company where you work on Excel, which I'm sure you will, 100%, and you don't know these things, then you can't call yourself an advanced user. I mean, it doesn't make sense, right? Like people say, no, I am an advanced user of Excel, but I don't know programming. There can be no buts and ifs in it. If you want to be an advanced user, then you have to learn programming. Is it difficult? Is it exciting? Is it interesting? Will it be time consuming? I'm not going to answer all those questions. It might be different things for different people. Somebody might really enjoy it. Somebody might find it very difficult, but you have to learn it. Do all of you have to learn it at an advanced level? Perhaps not. Maybe some of you need to learn it from a very basic level. If you're working in finance and operations, then you need to learn only finance. If you want to work in finance, then you have to learn it in a quite detailed manner. If you're in marketing and sales, then all of this is not very important. For you, Power BI and Tableau is much more important, right? So when a company comes from a profile of a business analyst, do they compulsorily look for engineering background? Sakshi, see, that depends on the organization. Some companies might have a prerequisite because of two reasons. One is programming. The other is a logical background. Engineers are considered to be better at logical thinking, right? Compared to other backgrounds. But I think things are changing and a lot of companies will be willing to give others an opportunity as well. See, today, like I said, I mean, you could have been an arts student and maybe you are a programmer today. There are online courses you can learn from YouTube. There is access to so much free content, excellent content. You don't need to study it in college to be able to become a programmer. Like I am a BBA and an MBA in marketing. I have never done programming in my life. I only started learning programming at the age of 26, right? And I mean, I've been doing it for a couple of years now. And the basic idea is that I learned it very late in life. Nobody cares whether you have the tag of an engineer or not. Nobody cares. At the end, what matters is whether you know your stuff and you're able to articulate your knowledge in an interview. But yes, there might be a few companies that might have a mandatory requirement, but more and more you would see that most of the companies are moving away from these mandatory requirements. For Excel, should we learn JavaScript or VBA? See, both are important. By the way, we don't use JavaScript on Excel, even though I said that. We use something called TypeScript, right? TypeScript is a type of JavaScript that is created and maintained by Microsoft. Let me just show you. So if you notice everyone, TypeScript is a programming language developed and maintained by Microsoft. It is a superset of JavaScript. That means it is interchangeable with JavaScript, but it has some better capabilities, right? For people. This is what you have to learn. And this is very new. Like TypeScript is just a couple of years old. If you notice, the first stable release has come in 2020 August, last month, right? So, I mean, that's the idea. It's very new. So it's new for everyone. It's new for me also. I'm also learning it from scratch. And you don't have to run around here and there. If you notice, if you search for TypeScript Excel, you will notice that Microsoft has given you a lot of tutorials. It has explained everything. How does it work? What is JavaScript? How, you know, on Microsoft Office, how do you use it? So everything is there. It's not that it's not there, but I mean, you will have to spend a lot of time and effort reading all this. And if you're coming from a non-programming background, then it will be difficult. No question about it. That way, learning anything will be difficult. Even learning Power BI and Tableau will be difficult for you. The question is not, can you or can you not learn programming? The question is, how quickly can you learn it? I mean, it's not a question of if or if not. It's a question of when and how soon and how quickly. VBA is also very important because VBA in 2008 became a legacy language, okay? Which means that in 2008, Microsoft stopped support for Visual Basic. So if you notice, in 2008, it was declared a legacy language, which means that there are no developments happening in that area. So for the last 12 years, there have been no updates, but Visual Basic is installed on every computer because whichever computer has Excel, it also has Visual Basic. And that is what makes it very powerful. If you're working in finance, this is a must. And when I say a must, it means a must. You have to learn Visual Basic. Now you might say, but I have not seen other people learn it. People might choose not to do something. That doesn't mean that it's not required. If you learn VBA, it will help you with any finance profile that you're working in. Whether you're in BFSI, marketing, sales, CAPEX, foreign exchange, algorithmic trading, whatever your M&A, whatever you're working with, VBA is a must for finance. And how does VBA work? I'll give you a very simple example. I will even write a code to show you how to do this, okay? Let's say that you have last year's sales and I have current year sales, okay? So my last year sales is 100, this year is 120, last year is 80, and this year is 100, no, let's say 60. And then last year is, this is for West and South and East, and this is 60 and this is 60. Now, how do you find the YOY change? Now, usually when we write a formula, we would write it like this, correct? We would write equal to my current year minus my last year divided by my last year. Everyone? I'm sure everybody will agree with me. But I want to show you how you can do the same thing using Visual Basic to make it even simpler so that you don't have to write a formula. You can create your own function, right? I'll do it right in front of you. This is a new workbook. I will right click on my sheet and select view code, right? This is my workbook called book one. I will insert a module, and in this I will write sub. I want to call it YOY change because that's what I need to find. And this is not a procedure, this is a function, right? Because I want this to become a function in my Excel file. So I'll say function YOY change, and I will say that LY as variant and CY as variant. Variant is just a type of data, like you have integer, number, date, time, text. Similarly, I have a variant. And I will say that my YOY change is equal to, watch carefully. In fact, let me just move it around. So let the current year come first and then the last year. So I'll say that my YOY changes my current year minus my last year divided by my last year. That's all. Just 3 lines that you have to write. Okay. And what does it do? Now you can come back and you can write equal to YOY change. And what do you select? You select current year, comma, last year, and you can get the same result. Now you might say, but what's the big deal? I could have also written this, but why do you want to write a formula when you have a function? Isn't it simpler? It's simpler for you to work with. It's simpler to edit, to rectify a mistake. It's simpler for you to transfer this knowledge to somebody else. So if a new team member comes in, it's easier to explain how to work with this. And obviously you can create more advanced things. For example, if I have 1, 2, AB, CB, 4, 5, and BN, 6, 7, MN, how do you separate the number? So I've created a function called extract number, which will extract the number for you. Very cool, right? And if I want to convert this number into a word, or rather a currency, I can say convert to INR, and you notice it will automatically convert it into 12 rupees, 45 rupees, 67. And this is dynamic. So tomorrow, if this changes, the result will also change. This is very handy. Like this is something I do for PwC and EY. When you're working in forensics or indirect tax or assurance or advisory, you have a lot of GL values, general ledger, bank statements, hundreds and thousands of entries. And they're all muddled up. If you've ever downloaded a bank statement, you know that it doesn't come in a proper syntax, right? Sometimes the numbers and the text are mixed together. Let's say the check number or the invoice number or the RTGS number. How do you separate it? Excel doesn't have a feature which will extract the number for you. You can only do it using what I've shown you, using a custom defined function that I have created, right? Like this. Any questions on this? Otherwise, I'll just show you a little bit of Python, what we can do. Okay. I'm working on Python now. This is called Jupyter. So basically, when you want to run Python, if you know, then you can skip this part. If you don't know this, you first have to install Python, which is a very simple, small file. And then you have to install something called Anaconda, which will allow you to run Python on your system. Both of these are free of cost. And then you can run it on your system like this. Like I have Anaconda with me. So this is my Python code. And you know what I'm doing? Don't look at the code. Look at the business use cases. I have an ability here to write whatever I want. So do you see this, everyone? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Just a second. Okay. Do you see this part where I've written the query and the count? What I can do is I can just write, let's say, Donald Trump, everyone. Okay, that's what I've done. I click on run and see what will happen. It will take a few seconds. Do you see this? It is automatically giving me the last 50 tweets that have come on Twitter for Donald Trump, and it is telling me a sentiment analysis. So it is telling me that 41% of those tweets were positive, 13% were negative, and 44% were neutral. Very cool, right? How is this working? What do we call it? We call this sentiment analysis, right? Which basically means that you're looking at the sentiment of a comment. Let's say you go to Amazon, you look at the review of a product, or you have a survey and you want to look at these survey responses from employees and customers. Or you go to Twitter and you look at the sentiment of a tweet or of news clippings or something like that. And I can put anything I want. So if you notice, I can put, let's say, Modi, right? Let's try. So run. And you notice 25% positive, negative 17, and neutral 57, like this. Very cool, right? Similarly, we can also work with Facebook. Let me show that one to you as well. Let me go to Facebook. I'm not active on Facebook. So let's say you are looking at Disney. Everybody. So this is the page, right? Facebook.com/Disney. Do you see the articles, the posts that are here? It says, do you feel a smackerel of chill in the air? Then it says, in case you missed it, celebrate this month's anniversary. Let's say I want to get all these post titles. How will I do it? Please watch. Obviously, you will not do it one by one. I can just write Disney here, which I've already done. And I can say I want the 500 characters. And if I click on run, you would notice that it automatically tells me, do you see this, everyone? Do you feel a smacker of chill in the air? And you can get this. And you can do this for any brand. Like if you're looking at, let's say Nike, what is the first post? It says, outplay yourself. Roger Federer, Melbourne's defending champion. I can just come here. The website doesn't even need to be open. I can even close it. And I can just type Nike, run. That's it. A few seconds and it gives me the post. And if I say 5,000 and I click on run, okay, I'm not sure why 5,000 is not working. Just a minute. Okay, it's working now, right? So pretty cool, right? Like look at, this is literally 3 lines of code. That's all it is. Obviously, there's a lot of background that you need to understand as well. Like I've basically looked at multiple pages but imagine how useful this can be for a business. Like you don't need to have a person who will go online and get you the data, look at the information. You can do all of this so simply by accessing libraries on Python. So what I'm showing you right now is web scraping. Let me also show you how data visualization can happen. I'm sure all of you would have seen this. A lot of people post this on LinkedIn. You've seen these, right, everyone? You have these moving bar charts. Just watch this. So let me just run it once again. Just a minute, guys. It says that, oh, the path is incorrect. I'm so sorry. You'll just have to give me a moment. I'll have to change my path. My mistake. I've actually shifted to a new laptop, so everything is a little out of place. Yeah. All of this is very cool, right? But here's the best part. I can actually make an animated bar chart. Did you see this? What I can do is I can just put it here. How do I hide this thing? Control Shift. Okay. So I can just click on the play button and it will actually start to play. I can even control the speed, right? I can even make it go backwards. Pretty cool, right? Like this is how, of course, what you see on LinkedIn can be done using multiple platforms. Python is not the only thing that can do it. There are other online tools that can do it as well. But basically, this is the idea. What have we done? We are working with Pandas, Matplotlib, which is the visualization library, and IPython to display the animated bar chart. This is my data set. You can give any data set that you want. Here I've defined which colors have to be given to the data set. And then I have basically defined the size of my chart. And then I've defined the axis and the label size and what's on X, what's on Y, what is the title, things like that. Right? Good. Any question, anyone? Anything you would like to ask? You know, so like earlier today, a client was asking me that she's doing some work in the pharma sector. She runs a market research company. And she was saying, we want to track these 15, 20 people on Twitter to see the posts and the sentiment, whether they are, because, you know, in healthcare, when there is a new drug, you always want to see what the others are talking about it. Are they saying good things, bad things? And that's what you'll be able to find out. Right. So very important question. How should you start working on programming? It's very difficult. I used to say where and how should you start? I would personally recommend start with VBA. It's a very, it's an answer that not everybody would give you. A lot of people will say, why VBA? VBA is a dead language. But I feel VBA is a simple language to begin with because VBA works on Excel and we all know Excel, even a little bit, if not a lot, at least a little bit, you know Excel. That is, I'm sorry, that's why I recommend learning VBA is much simpler because you can connect it to what you're doing on Excel, right? And then you can go in any direction you want. You want to work on R, you work on R. You want to work on Python, you work on Python. You can pick up any area that you wish to, right? R, like I said, is more for data science. So if I just quickly show it to you. Let's take a simple example. I will not do it again, but let me just open one of the files that I already have. Let's say chapter 1. So what I'm doing here is wait, let me just install it, just a moment. See, most of what you can do on R and Python is an overlap. Like I can do web scraping here, I can do data science, data cleaning, visualization. But Python is a more general programming language, so you can do many more things on Python compared to R. Does it mean that Python is better? Absolutely not. They have different areas of specialty. Python is better at different things, but R is specialized for statistical analysis, right? So if you notice, I'm sorry, so sorry. I just have to select ggplot once. So simple visualizations that you want to create, you want to put colors in it, you want to look at different size, so the level of control that you would have on R is much, much better than what you would have on Python. Like even if you don't understand 100% what I'm doing, you can see the idea, right? The statistical analysis. I'm taking a data set and I'm doing different types of things on it, right? Can we do the same thing on Python? Absolutely. Python has different libraries. We have NumPy, we have Pandas, we have Seaborn, but R would be always ahead in terms of the simplicity, in terms of the depth compared to what you can do on Python. Plus the interface. I'm working on what we call R Studio. It's a beautiful software, very light, and like I can see all my the history of the variables that I've created. I can see the visualization. I can zoom in. I can export it. I can see the code. I can see the console. It's all very simple, and so the question that was asked, where to start? I personally feel you should start parallelly, do different things at the same time. Don't learn one thing and then do the other thing. It doesn't make sense. Learn different things at the same time because there will be overlaps and it will help you, right? I know you might feel we have to learn one thing, you're telling us to learn 5 things at the same time. But I really feel that it's a much better idea to learn multiple things at the same time. Like when I learned Python for the last 2 years, I wish I had started learning R at the same time. I've only been learning R for 3-4 weeks now. But I think that's a very important observation, right? Also, you can do machine learning. So let me just give you a simple example. A student from IMI is doing his live project with me. So he has created this example on what is called decision tree. So basically, we've taken a data set and we are applying our regression model. So we are taking a 20% data set as a test data set. And then we are predicting what would be the shipping mode. Like if a customer is purchasing one product in one region, in one segment, then what is likely will be the shipping mode. And then this is the accuracy that I'm getting, which is 64%, right? But see, when you're working with machine learning, you have to learn the hard statistics behind it. That's very important. Like you have to learn what is decision tree, right? Then you have to learn in decision tree what is the Gini impurity, right? So what we call the Gini index or the Gini impurity. Then you have to understand what is support vector machines. You have to understand what is KNN. You have to understand what is, let's say, overfitting. I'm not showing all this to you to confuse you or to show off or to tell you that it's difficult. I'm telling you because it's important for you to know that you can't work with machine learning unless you know regression properly. We in fact call it CART, because it's classification and regression testing, right? So it's got classification and regression, and there are different methods in it. Machine learning is nothing but regression and classification, right? It's just about how do you work with it after learning all the background theory behind it, right? So your basic regression, linear, multiple, independent, dependent, residuals, least square method, line of best fit, y equal to mx plus b. You have to be thorough with all of this. If you're not, then you will never be able to learn machine learning properly. You might be able to copy the code from somewhere else and do it, but you will never be able to interpret it. Like you, even if I give this to you, you will never be able to explain to me what is happening here, right? I hope that makes sense. How do you do a live project with me? I put posts on LinkedIn regularly. Students are doing their live projects with me throughout the year. At any given moment, I have 15, 20 students doing their live projects with me. In fact, this file that you see, everyone, this is not being done by me at all. This entire project has been done by a student. In fact, if I show you, just look at this. KNN, logistic regression, random forest, regression, support vector machines, everything has been done by students there, right? And there's even more. If you look at this, and these were students who 1 year back did not know what programming was. Shadman is a IIT Roorkee MBA student. He did his winter internship with me in November and December. That time he was working on Tableau, right? He did not know programming. And after that, in the last 8-9 months, he has been learning so much and has been doing such a wonderful job. Like he's actually created an entire HR attrition model. I mean, can you imagine that? How cool is that? Sakshi, if finance is your major, Python and R would be beneficial. VBA and Excel is super important, followed by Power BI, followed by Python and R, right? Excel is number one, VBA is Power BI is number two, VBA is number three, and then you have all the other things that you want to learn. But nothing without Excel and Power BI, right? Unless you're working in areas like algorithmic trading, hedge fund analysis. In those areas, you might need to work with Python, but otherwise, I think 80% of the jobs that are there only require you to work on Excel. Financial models are not made in Python. Okay, financial models are created on Excel files around the world. Every Fortune 500, 150 company, unicorns, all of them do it on Excel. I have trained Amazon, Flipkart in the past, and their entire demand planning forecasting happens on Excel. They don't use fancy tools for it. Just because I'm showing you different things doesn't mean that I'm telling you that learning everything is important right now. Like I said, to begin with, Excel is a great starting point because whatever you do, Excel will be required, right? And the more you learn Excel, it will make things easier. You will understand better other tools much better, right? Not because I work on Excel, that's why I'm telling you to work on Excel. I'm telling you because it is the number one and the most important thing for you to learn. Gain as much knowledge in Excel as possible, right? If you're interested in paid courses, I can tell you. If you're interested in free content, you can go to my YouTube channel. I have everything available, right? So if you notice, I just started a new playlist, which is 60-second tips on Excel. So there are about 45 videos here. And this is like one example on different things on Excel. Then I have proper things like I have a Power BI playlist, right? Where I explain Power BI in a lot of detail. Then I have, what else? I have entire 1.5 hour videos here. So there is something called long form videos, right? So you can see these 1 hour, 48 minute, 1 hour, 2 hour lectures on VBA, right? So I think this would be a great starting point for you. Like if you are interested in a more structured, a more detailed paid course, I will share the link with you after the session is over. But if you just want to start out and figure out what is it that you want to do, then I think even starting with YouTube is a great idea. So as you can see, I have different courses on Excel. So there is VLOOKUP, Pivot Table, Visual Basic, Dynamic Arrays, Excel charts. Similarly, there's a 5-hour course on Power BI. Then I have some courses on Python for absolute beginners. You know, if you're literally starting for the first time, how to install it, what is it? I mean, why do we even use it? If you have those sort of questions, then this is the course that I have. These are all very reasonably priced also. Right? On the YouTube channel, I have more content on Excel and PowerPoint and Power BI. Python and all I've just started. I think there's just a few videos that I've started to put, but I hope to start putting more content regularly. Great. Excellent. Any other questions, anyone? If you have to choose your specialization next year, there is a business analytics specialization as well. That's the reason you wanted to know more about it. See, I can't take your call for you. You have to decide what to do. It's not that it's not possible. Others also do it. It's just that if you decide to go in that path, finance as it is would require you to do a lot of studying and spend a lot of time reading, which is quite overwhelming. On top of that, if you also want to learn, you have to learn Excel in a lot of detail. Plus, on top of that, if you also want to learn Power BI and you want to learn programming, you're giving yourself a lot of baggage. I'm not saying it's not possible and you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that you should realize that it will become quite a lot, right? But you know what? If you're picking up finance, then life is tough. For marketing and sales guys, HR guys, life is easy. Finance, no question about it. Life will be tough. Right? Some of these things obviously might be taught in the college as well, but some of it might not be taught. See, in any case, what they teach you in college is going to be very limited and probably not in line with what is used in the corporate. So you have to learn on your own. You have to do self-learning. You can't rely on others to come and teach you these things. How do I learn? If you're interested to know, do you see this, everyone? Do you see the number of bookmarks that I have? Properly cataloged, everything is neatly in one order. Just imagine how much effort it takes to put everything. And I'm not just right click, save, right click, save. These are all things that I've already read or I'm reading or I'm working on, right? This is what I'm saying. This is what is important. So when you're working, it's important to catalog everything and remember that learning and becoming a data analyst is a journey. It's not a destination. So you don't say, oh, do I need to learn these 5 things to become a data analyst? It's not like that. Every day there are new features. There are new technologies. Now there are tools like Nine, which has just been launched. And Nine is a end-to-end data science platform. It's an open source free platform and beautiful tool, right? You can do lots of ML, AI capabilities on it. And like this, there'll be new things that will keep on coming in. Like there's a language now called Rust, right? It's a new language. Then there's another language called Julia, which is expected to take over Python after some time. Then you have Go, which is a language that Google has started. You know, so this is, it can get very overwhelming. You might say, oh my God, there is so much to do. Obviously, nobody will learn everything with the same level of depth, but some things are mandatory, like learning Excel and Power BI is mandatory. You can't escape it. Having a very high level understanding of programming. What is programming? What is a loop? What is a variable? At least that much you should know. Maybe you decide not to go very deep into it, which is okay. You don't need to. But I mean, a basic understanding of coding and programming is very important. Right? Excellent. Any other questions? Take your time. We're in no hurry. Okay, so even if you think of something later on, feel free to ask me. We are connected on LinkedIn, hopefully. If you're not, please send me an invite. And that's okay, be in touch. I do a lot of things with business schools. So if the college is interested, then I also do these certificate courses. So I do a 12-hour session on Excel and Power BI. And then I do a 18-hour session on Excel, Power BI, and Tableau. And I've done this with numerous colleges around the country. Um, then from a B school perspective, at any point of time you want me to come and take a guest lecture, more than happy to do that. Even though a guest lecture will not really help you because, I mean, I can only show you so much in 1 hour, right? If you really want to practice and you want it to be hands-on, then you have to do it in a proper structured manner. We need some time for that. Right? Yeah, great. That would be all from my side. Absolutely. I'll be more than happy to. Like I said, if I do at least 2 to 3 guest lectures every week, no matter how busy I am. And I'm happy to take out time, both for the final years and for the first years. Saturday, Sunday, weekdays is a little busy, obviously, but weekends or on a weekday post 6 o'clock is usually a good time to catch hold of me. Great. Let me just look at the other questions that you guys had put, the answers that you had put in the key expectations. I hope you have a little bit more clarity in terms of what a data analyst does, right? Um, I think that was the big takeaway. The idea of this session was not for you to learn how to do it. The idea was for you to see what all can be done. How to do it is the simple part. You can learn it from a course, from a video, from a book. What is the role of a data analyst entail? How are these different tools different? How do they look? That's the important takeaway for today, right? So I hope we have met that goal. Mansi, I mean, I read from books, so I'm not really sure where you can learn R from. For Python, you can look at this guy called Mosh Hindani. But do remember that there is no one person who will be the only person for one tool. Like you will have to go to multiple platforms. But let me just put it. And by the way, I'm preparing some courses on R, but right now I'm still preparing the content. So I think in another month or so, I will have the course ready. Excellent. Great, everyone. All the very best and be in touch. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Right. Thank you.